Now, leaders of the Southern African Development Community and the East African Community are meeting today and tomorrow to discuss the ongoing conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, the DRC is a member of both the SADC and EAC, while Rwanda is a member of only the East African Community. Now, both SADC and the EAC have initiated separate mediation efforts, the Nairobi Peace Process and the Luanda Peace Process. For more on this now, let's bring in correspondent live to us from Tanzania. That's Isaac Lukando joining us now. So Isaac, thank you for your time this hour. So we're told to now expect conversations to come out on the ongoing conflict, that we should expect talks on this. Talk to us about what we should expect to come out of these talks.
Well, it's an interesting question that you pose because it comes with a conundrum. Because whilst the members of SADC and the foreign ministers of the EAC are meeting here in Dar es Salaam today, actually it's a ministerial meeting happening today. We're expecting the presidents to meet tomorrow for the summit. There remains a key question about whether they can come to a conclusion so quickly because of all the layers that are involved. One of the key questions is whether some of the parties, for example, M23 in the Democratic Republic of Congo, are represented here. We do not have information about whether they're here or not, but the SADC chairperson, Emerson Mnangagwa, had said that he would like to see M23 and other groups involved here in Dar es Salaam to see fruitful discussions about what is going on there, because while there is a meeting here in Dar es Salaam, M23 continues to advance towards Kinshasa with its stated goal of seizing power over the entire country. And so therefore this brings a bit of a challenge, because M23 might not be represented here, but the leaders of these countries, DRC and Rwanda, are represented here. So deliberations might get only to a certain point, and therein lies the conundrum. But then there's also the different processes. As you mentioned, there's the Luanda process and the Nairobi process as well, which so far have stalled. They haven't brought in the required results. And so that is something that will also be brought to the fore. There's also the humanitarian crisis happening in Eastern Congo, which also needs to be urgently addressed. So there's a lot on the table to be discussed today, and we're unsure about whether or not the war itself will come to an end, or whether we'll get meaningful traction out of today.
And interestingly, you mentioned also those processes, Isaac, because I wanted to pick up on it, that you now have these parallel, of course, mediation efforts that are happening now with SADC as well as the EAC. These are separate mediation efforts. Talk to us about how this process is likely to unfold, and what does this mean in terms of finding a speedy resolution to what is happening now on the ground?
Well, based on a brief that President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was leading the Nairobi Peace Process, he gave that briefing yesterday. He mentioned that both the Nairobi process and the Luanda process are integral to finding peace in Eastern DRC. But as you've heard, there have been criticism that both processes haven't been able to yield as much. But former President Uhuru Kenyatta mentioned in his briefing, both to the EAC and SADC as well as the African Union, that he believes that these two processes still carry weight and can still deliver results. You'll understand that the Luanda process is aimed at bringing together DRC as well as Rwanda to the table to be able to discuss. But the Nairobi Peace Process aims at bringing together the warring parties and particularly the various rebel groups in the DRC to be able to find a resolution resolution. And there have been various interventions over the course of 2 years, but that hasn't borne much fruit. And this is because of the mistrust. And coming into today's meeting, there's still that mistrust. The very fact that President Tshisekedi has agreed to come to Dar es Salaam for this meeting is an indication of that. There was an East African community meeting that was held last week, but Tshisekedi was a no-show for that one. Meanwhile, he was present in Angola for similar discussions, and this is the premise on which this particular meeting is being convened, that perhaps President Tshisekedi is comfortable with coming to Dar es Salaam and hopefully bringing all these different peace processes to Dar es Salaam on the table, being discussed, and hopefully today's deliberations will be able to chart the way forward on what can be done to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
And here's the thing, Isaac, as we're having this conversation, as you've also rightfully mentioned, that there has been multiple processes to try and bring an end to all of this. What are you hearing on the front of some of the parties that are going to be on the discussion table? You know, that they will not only be coming to the discussion table just for the sake of coming to the discussion table, but they will be coming there to have open and honest dialogue for the people who matter the most, and that's for the people on the ground. What are you hearing on this front? Is there a will on those parties that are going to be on the discussion table to have those discussions to bring a speedy resolution to all of this?
Well, we know for example, from what SADC has intimated that they are seeking to have an honest discussion that involves all the parties that are warring in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we are unsure whether M23 is represented here today, because in the Democratic Republic of Congo they have issued an international arrest warrant for the leader of the Congo River Alliance, which includes M23. So that, of course, puts this into a bit of a conundrum. So does the leader of M23 come to Dar es Salaam? Is he in Dar es Salaam? And what does that discussion look like? And without M23, the leader of SADC doesn't believe that there can be meaningful traction. But that's also beside the point. There's a humanitarian crisis that needs to be resolved. And some of the analysts that I've spoke to believe that from the deliberations today, there might be some traction in ensuring that humanitarian aid is able to flow into places like Goma, where over 1 million people have been displaced in the province generally, and 3,000 people have lost their lives. So there's the urgent humanitarian issue that we believe might get some resolution, but there are still looming questions about how this peace process will unfold in terms of peeling off the different layers, building trust and confidence measures. And some of the analysts are saying that is what needs to happen, that there have to be confidence building measures to be able to continue with dialogue, to be able to reach a successful conclusion.
Of course, stressing there on the importance of dialogue, but you've also just used a very critical term there, and you said this is an urgent humanitarian crisis. Just paint a picture for us on how things are looking right now on the ground for the benefit of our viewers.
So you have, from what we've seen, the reports that we've seen, you have a significant population that has left Goma and come into Rwanda in camps there. They're living in very poor conditions there. Those that are in Goma, many of them are living without the basic services. So you've got water, food, and things of that nature. Although relative calm has returned to Goma, but there's still a lot of people displaced. As we said, in the province, there are about 1 million people who have left their homes, fled their homes because of all the fighting. And there's still a level of unrest that people are feeling, because while there was an interim ceasefire that was declared unilaterally by M23, the forces have continued to advance to other areas. There was another town that was taken over, and they appear to be heading to Bukavu, where the intention, as stated in a public rally this week, they intend to go all the way to Kinshasa. So there's still that level of unrest, and we believe that that will play into some of the discussions here today. But the question remains, what will be done for the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who need urgent humanitarian aid? And hopefully this deliberation here today will put that on the fore and come out with resolutions that help those people on the ground.